welcome to another episode of Strive 365. I'm your host, Justin Arnold. This is a podcast where that's exactly what we do. We help you to strive in different ways, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whether it be personal, whether it be professional. Typically, I have a guest on this show. Today, it is me, and this is all about striving. How to find comfort through discomfort. And me and Scott have been talking about this. I actually talk about it in my book. It's something I speak regularly on. We've even kind of touched on it in a few past episodes. I thought, man, why don't I just come on here? And what is comfort through discomfort? So briefly, it's where we do uncomfortable things. Let's explain in layman terms, where we do uncomfortable things to find long-term comfort. So there's a number of different things which I'll list on this podcast today. We'll explore the concept of comfort through discomfort, various methods that I use to harness the power, and it actually has a happier, healthier life. So like the flip side of that coin, so this is two different sides of the same coin that play important roles in our life, but you could say discomfort through comfort. So what does that mean? Well, that's what a lot of people are living today. So I look at that as, let's start with the fitness side of things. So when we are looking for the comfort as far as, I don't want to work out, Netflix and social media and sitting on this couch, those are comfortable things. Don't get me wrong. Cuddling with my wife, watching movies, I love it. My two kids are actually in the other room, hanging out with them. But through that, our body gets stiff and we become more uncomfortable with movement, with life. We tend to make more, I don't like to use the word unhealthy, but we tend to make better choices. We don't make the best choices when it comes to our food when we start going down this, because we go down this rabbit hole of finding the easy comfort, and then we just keep looking for more of that comfort, the endorphin rush that you hear so much about these days, especially the social media endorphin rush. So that's kind of what we're looking for. And what I have found, and I do a number of different things. I work out is one thing, and it's an uncomfortable thing that I do that we'll talk more in depth on, but it's an uncomfortable thing that I do so I can be more comfortable, so I can prevent a lot of illnesses. I mean, I'll probably dive into my parents' and my family's history of things like obesity, cancer, diabetes, and some preventable things there that can be, again, prevented through movement and more real food, as I like to put it. Some other things that I do, every morning I get up, I do meditation. That could be uncomfortable for some people. Calming the mind, quieting the mind. That's something for me that I'll talk about a little bit. Being a person who has a very active mind, both from being a child of trauma and being diagnosed with ADHD. And I use that term, I don't want to say loosely, but I look at ADHD as a superpower, where I feel in at least the American society, because that's really what I can talk on, in places, especially at least for me growing up, it was looked at as like a disability. I look at it as like something that helps me a lot once we learn to harness it. Some other things that I do that people call me crazy. In the morning, I literally have a tub of sorts in my backyard that I jump in. Right now, it's sitting anywhere between 49 to 59. As it gets warmer, I'll drop it down to about like 39. I know there's some people that do these ice baths and they're like in the teens, and that's fine. Do you? But I try to follow the data and the research, and the data and research shows usually between 49 and 59 for, even 3 to 5 minutes a day, accumulating a total of 11 minutes in a week, can have the benefits, which I'll dive in. And some other things, I lay on an acupuncture, almost like a bed of nails in the middle of the day. Again, a little bit of discomfort, but I'm to the point where I'm passing out on that. And we'll talk more, but that's just giving you like an idea of what we're going to talk about on today's episode. And I just have found that through a lot of these things personally, how it's just improved my life. So again, we kind of explain what that comfort through discomfort, how it can be a powerful tool. So let's start with fitness, since that's the one I've been doing the longest. So for me, I got into it and I do it as a career. And for those who know, I'm a gym owner, I'm a trainer, I'm a coach, I'm an author, best-selling, by the way, but a nutritionist, a number of different hats in the health and wellness world. And I grew up as a 90s kid, 80s, 90s kid. So I was born in 81. I'm 42. And that was through the era, if you haven't watched enough Netflix documentaries where we took a lot of fat out of foods and induced it with sugar, especially things like yogurt, which my mom ate heavily of, and we called it healthy. And now we're getting to the point where we're like overly processing like veggie burgers and things like that. And we're kind of going down that rabbit hole again and putting a stamp on it that it's healthy. And what I've learned is that the realer, yeah, I said that. That's my word. I claim it. The more real things are and the closer to the original source as best as we can get, then the better it's going to be for you. But I started getting help because I grew up. I had a grandfather who had multiple strokes. Ended up passing away from that. I had my dad. He's still alive, but he's had prostate cancer, diabetes, obesity, heart disease. Man, he's got more, but there's a short list. My mom's had skin cancer, which again, that's debatable as far as the preventative measures. But then she's also had a brain tumor on on her brainstem. It's inside her neck, right? Her brainstem, and then she's cholesterol, heart issues as well, overweight, and then no diabetes there, but my oldest brother, diabetic, and then my uncle, same thing, lost my aunt to some preventable diseases. My grandmother ended up passing away in 2016. How do I want to explain this? She was 96, I believe, 95, 96. She was in her mid-90s, and she wasn't really what I thought, cognitively she was incredible, but she was definitely overweight. But she passed away, and all we know is they're going to call it natural causes because that's what they do. But I believe hers was preventable as well because the day before she was complaining of like stomach issues and just gut issues, and now we know like how important the gut is. And if you don't know, it's super important. I might butcher these numbers, but well, let's just say this: a majority of your hormones like serotonin are developed through the gut. And so things are we're finding out our gut is more our first brain as opposed to this guy up here in our head. And that down there, our stomach, our gut is controlling a lot of the things up here. So healthier gut. So the food we put in, the thoughts that we think about ourselves, all that. So back to everything. I listed off my family. I listed off a lot of their issues and a lot of the health that they're either went through or currently going through. I left off a lot too. But I wanted to give you an idea as I had two busy working parents. And it sounds like a joke, but I say they had 6 jobs literally between the two of them. My mom was a well-qualified master's degree. She was a guidance counselor, but pretty much near being a psychologist. My dad was math and science master's, did a lot of teaching, some other stuff. But for some reason, they were making really good money, but for some reason, we were always poor. I believe it was more the mindset, the scarcity mindset, and what they grew up with. So they always felt the need to have multiple jobs. Like my mom was not only a guidance counselor full-time, but she was also a firefighter. She was also working at like Joe and Fabrics, and occasionally she would pick us up some other stuff. And then my dad, teacher, and he had multiple side jobs as well. And it was just incredible. Like one of the things he would do would help out on my grandma's farm, which has got me into my farming as well, and enjoyed it, physical work. But I just saw with this busy schedule, like we had literally 3. You can't even see I put up 6 fingers too, but we literally had 2 refrigerator freezers and 1 massive freezer, like one of those big, tall, like 1970. It was yellow. I'll never forget it. They would just buy like frozen foods, like frozen pizzas, hot dogs, all that kind of stuff, throw it in that freezer. And we would literally survive off of that. It was up to us if we wanted a meal. Most of the time, it was just cooking it, coming after school, making our own breakfast, which was totally cool. It actually got me inspired. But it wasn't even about health originally. It was really about boredom. But then I also just realized by changing into more real food, how just better I felt, more energy, the mental capacity. And we're talking early 90s before we talked about a lot of these other things. It's more just personal experience. And that's what you're going to hear a lot on today's episode. But just these personal experiences. And it was more just boredom. But once I, like I said, realized how good it felt to eat real food. And then I started to find a love and funness at cooking. So I hear it all the time. How do you cook? How do you have time? I can't cook. When you use these words, guess what? When you say I can't cook, you can't. But if you give it a try and you play around a little bit, you'd be surprised. And with the world of the internet, there's no reason why you can't. You should be able to. You could literally Google 15-minute recipes. Heck, with AI, which Scott and I have talked about on behind the scenes, and we're not a huge fan of it, but there are benefits. If you wanted to type something in there, I'm sure you could find a recipe for what ingredients you have in your house. I used to be a little MacGyver, and that was mainly because of like growing up with middle things. When I got to college, I was super poor. And so it's whatever I had around, but I still wanted to eat good. I still wanted to eat healthy. So I would do these things to cook. So very early on, seeing, my family, it was just cooking really, really good food and cooking healthy. And then I started movement. Like I was in sports, but I also knew that moving around, I'd stayed leaner, eating this food, I was feeling better. So as I got older and older and older, I was doing things different than what I saw from my family. Their health was declining, especially my parents and my uncle and my grandparents and my brother. And I took this into college. Did I have some fun in college? Yes, but again, I was still going to the gym very early on. I was moving regularly. I was trying to eat these real foods because I saw what a lot of my fraternity brothers and what others were doing, and it wasn't working for them. And again, this was well before I even thought about being a personal trainer. It wasn't like I was some health geek. It wasn't like trying to be the healthiest, the fittest. It was just feeling good. And that's what I preach. Do you want to feel your best? So you got to do some of the uncomfortable things. And maybe the uncomfortable is taking a cooking class. Cooking could be uncomfortable. I know some people that claim that I burn water, or I burn tomato soup, or, you just got to keep trying at it, and you got to keep practicing at it. It's like any skill, but it's actually easier. It's more fun and be more efficient. And especially with the rising costs, if you can learn to cook meals more often, you're going to save time and you're going to save money. I'll give you an example for me for cooking. Most of the time, and I say most because this past weekend, one of those times I didn't because I was away at my daughter's hockey tournament. But most of the time, I batch cook for the entire family on Sunday. And all it takes me is about 2 hours. It maybe took me more in the beginning, but once I've kind of mastered it and I've utilized the kids, like my daughters especially, they do a lot of the I can't talk, cucking, whatever that is, cutting, sauteing vegetables up, whatever we need. So if you have other people in your house, if not, get a friend. I bet plenty of you know people that aren't cooking, that you hear about how much food costs. Get together on a Sunday and share the food, and then split it up for the week. There's different ways of doing this. You can partner up in your neighborhood. This could bring friends together. There's a lot of different ways. If you don't have people in your life, if you're living alone or not a lot of availability, but a day doesn't go by that I know for me that I don't go drive down the road and see these long lines in the drive-through and nobody even inside. So that's a whole other story. And say they don't have time to cook, but they're spending 30 minutes in a drive-through. If you schedule it, for example, today, this podcast, good thing I scheduled it because I was starting at the beginning of the week. I don't think I'm going to have time to schedule a podcast. My kids are out of school. But if you schedule a time, I'm consistent on a lot of things in my life. One, I'm consistent what day, maybe not the exact same time, but what day I go grocery shopping. I'm consistent when it comes to what day I'm cooking. It's pretty much in the schedule. I'm consistent with a lot of these things. I'm even consistent with when I eat because then it doesn't happen because I hear people missing meals and things like that. We've talked enough about food. I could go on that probably with a podcast, but I just wanted to kind of go over some of these things and then movements coupled with this. Some people like, I can't make it to the gym. I can't afford. I'm trying to get rid of some of these negative self-talk and some of these negations that keep us from doing things. Start filling your head with words like, I can work out for 5 minutes today. And movement is really going to be a great caveat. We were built to move. We're meant to move, and we're moving less and less each day. And we're trying to find, they've been on the market like fat loss pills, weight loss pills. They even have things to like, supposedly you attach to your body in different parts like your abs, and they're supposed to create muscle. Like, we're meant to do stuff. We're meant to do uncomfortable stuff. And one is going to give us better health. But one thing I haven't really talked about yet is the mental benefit to all of this. Movement, the cold plunges, the Shakti mats, all these things. When we can embrace the uncomfortable, we can handle harder things later. But if we're always chasing the comfort now, the harder will only get harder and harder and harder. But the sooner we start to embrace things like just 5 minutes of movement, and then we increase it to 10. And again, we get consistent with our schedule. And a recent research just showed that you may only need 3 days of good interval work and just constant movement. So like, say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you do some intensive workouts, and then Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, you're filling it with just walking or playing a sport. And I highly suggest for those adults, find things you love. Maybe it's a sport for some physical activity. Maybe there's movements. Heck, dance classes. My wife has found, is like, let's call it normal people. She always uses that term. She's not in the gym like I am. She doesn't work in a gym like I do. She doesn't live in the gym essentially like I do. But she's found things that she really enjoys. She's competitive. So she's competitive with some of these Peloton classes that she takes. But I know a lot of you out there maybe not able to afford something like that or don't want to get something like that. So you just need to find out what works for you. And I'll tell you this, all you need is your body and maybe enough space for your body to move your arms out, your legs out, lay down flat, be in plank positions, and just start moving every joint every day, as I like to say it. Because once we can start embracing this, it gets easier and easier. Some people say 3 weeks, some people say 4. We could look up the data for that. But the point is, just do what works for you and try to do something every day. Because again, this is going to prevent what? We already know. It's going to prevent things like heart disease, obesity. It's going to keep us living longer. And let's talk about like the deep why. Yeah, being healthy, losing weight, that's the regular thing people come to me for when it comes to why they want to work out. But why do you want to lose that weight? Is it really to get ready for that vacation? I mean, maybe. Is it really to look good in the mirror? Maybe. I mean, that's motivating for sure. Or is it something deeper? I'll tell you my deeper. My deeper is so I can continue to play with my kids. Working out the right amount gives me energy. It doesn't deplete it. It makes me more energized to go play with these kids. Like go skating like I did this morning or go sledding later today with the amount of snow that we have here in Rochester. Maybe we go deeper. Maybe it's to be able to have the movement, mobility, and strength to lift up our grandchildren, move with them instead of just sitting on the couch or watching other people do it and saying, I wish I coulda. Don't be the I wish I coulda. Be the I'm gonna. I am. Because that's going to give you a more fulfilling, more joy-filled life. And that's going to give you a deeper-seated why on why you want to move in the first place, why we want to eat real food, why we want to embrace the struggles now, the challenges. I'm not talking about all day long, but the more we can handle small stressors that we can control, the controllable stressors, the more we can handle the uncontrollable. We have probably more uncontrollable stressors. Actually, I will say it. We have more uncontrollable stressors. So, somebody cutting us off in traffic, you have no control over that. Something your kid does, something your wife or husband says to you, you don't know, you don't have control over that. Somebody at work screaming at you, yelling at you, your boss, some report that's due, something somewhere from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed. Heck, maybe even after you go to bed, if you're in a job position where you're on call, like in the medical field, or my wife with the company she works for with the storms going on, that you might get a call and you got to get up at 4:30. So these are uncontrollable. So you need to pick controllable stressors in your life to help navigate and to help manage those uncontrollable stressors. So look for some of those things. And we already went through that movement. We went through the nutrition. If you have more questions about that, please reach out to me. But some other things that I do, like I said, the cold plunges. You might have heard some things like this. There's pushback on this. In fact, let's tell my personal story, because we can talk about the data, and there's a lot of information on the data. There's a lot of podcasts, much smarter people than me that talk about the data. I'm wondering if you guys even care about the data. So I'm just going to give you my personal. I was skeptical. I was really, really skeptical about cold plunges because I saw everybody in my fitness and health world and extreme athletes doing it. But all I was really hearing at the time, or maybe all I was choosing to hear at the time, was the physical. And my body's always felt pretty good because I'm a consistent mover. And when you move more, your blood flows, your blood heals. And again, I'll tell you this, if you're always stiff, tight, or sore, move. So just a little niche back in that movement because it's going to make your body feel better. But even on with the cold plunge, I was hesitant about doing that. But I thought one day, I started reading and looking into the mental benefits. And not that I deal with extreme mental health issues or depression or anything on a regular basis, but I'm always a believer that if I can do something, and there's layers and levels of everything, and we don't know what really, really great is until we get there. And cold plunge is one of those things done for me. For example, the days that I do it, I just feel better. And the days that I don't, I notice. And one of the big benefits mentally is I just have a lot more calmer energy. So calmer energy meaning I'm a man flowing with lots of testosterone and very active. And I grew up in a household with a lot of yelling and screaming, and that got input into me. And I remember very early on, I would lose my temper pretty easily. I started to manage it in a lot of different facets, but the best thing that I've ever done that makes it easy, doesn't even really happen anymore, and I'm able to pause, breathe, and kind of think through things, especially like losing my temper on my kids or anything, is these cold plunges. It's amazing what it's done just from that alone. But so about 2014 is when I started testing out the waters. One, it woke me the heck up. So if you're just looking for a good wake-up call, you've heard of splashing in cold water, jump in a cold shower. It's really not that bad. And I told you the temperatures, you're not going to freeze to death. It's really up here. And I'll tell you one thing from doing uncomfortable things like cold plunges and like acupuncture mats is it gets me to a better, deeper meditation because it forces me. Because if I don't choose to go into that deeper meditation, then I choose to be in pain or uncomfortable and struggle and hate it and go through all these different other feelings. When I flip to the latter, all those things go away. The pain from the acupuncture mat, the pain from the coldness, and it's really not that bad. And then like I feel this endorphin rush, and now the research and data shows you do get a major endorphin rush from cold plunges. And so, again, I'm just doing these first thing in the morning, waking me up. And I started this in 2014. And within the first time, let alone the first 3 months, is where I just really started to see a massive change in everything from the mental to even the physical. So like less soreness on a regular time. Now you might see some things to do it for like 10 or 15, and that's fine, to each his own, but you really only need like 3 to 5 minutes. I believe 11, is 11 minutes a week, like I said earlier. Anyways, yeah, so increase in dopamine. And in case you're not familiar with dopamine, it's a molecule in the brain and the body that's linked to motivation and can enhance focus and lower the threshold for taking action towards specific goals. I've also noticed improved sleep and even more vivid dreams. So like lucid, like movies inside my head. So we know we're getting into some really great deep REM sleep. Stuff I haven't really experienced in a long time. I almost want to say it's those type of dreams I used to have as a kid, especially probably my kid's age when the imagination was running wild. Well, I'm having that again. It's pretty cool, which has actually helped my creativity in my writing and my work and stuff like that. So I'm seeing massive improvement. And then, like I said, it's helped my sleep and it's boost my mood, improved my immune system. I'm really not, if I do get anything, my kids bring home stuff all the time. And I get like maybe a little sniffle for like a day, and the next day I'm back to normal. So for being 42 and just being able to have that quick healing is pretty cool. One of the other benefits that lists on the research is increased libido. You can imagine whether that's working for me. I will say it is. But there's a lot of great benefits. And on the increased libido, actually, I will talk about this for men specifically. There is some studies that show can increase testosterone. So for those dealing with any testosterone or even just want a boost, really cool stuff. I injured my lower back last year. Well, I probably injured it before, but I had the acute symptoms where I found out my C4 and C5 were torn, where like time my shoe hurt, couldn't bend over. I was having shooting, rocking pains. And I will say getting in that cold plunge, like if I have any even stiffness these days, boom, as soon as I get out, it's gone. It's pretty cool. It's like magic. A few other benefits, like I said, immune system, decreased muscle soreness, enhanced mental resilience is another one, stress, anxiety, and also this one that I left off, the activation of brown fat. So brown fat is a type of adipose tissue that generates heat in the body and burns calories. Exposure to cold temperatures like those experienced during an ice bath can increase the activity of brown fat, which in turn can increase the body's metabolic rate and help burn calories. So for those that are looking for a weight loss benefit, that one has been heavily researched and shown, which is really cool as well. And like I said, I already told you how long to stay in there, but to each his own. And how often, it's up to you. 11 minutes total a week is what they show. Doesn't need to be necessarily an ice bath. I would say if you don't have a temperature gauge or you're not throwing ice cubes in because that is expensive, or you're not putting an ice tub, just take your shower. You can do a cold shower, but I'm telling you what, I've noticed a difference between a shower and a bath. One, I can just sit there in the bath. It's a little bit more challenging in the get-go. Again, more challenging, so more discomfort in the very first minute, but it actually is more comfortable. Think about cold water just spitting at you constantly. I don't know. I found that annoying. I still found benefits from it, but if I had to choose one or the other, if you don't have access to a tub, totally cool. Cold showers, just stand there, work on your breathing. And you really don't need to dunk your head or get it above. Maybe get your face wet. So that's what I do. I get my face wet. I hold it in for like 10, 20 seconds on the water, and then I put the rest of my body in, or the rest of my body is in. But like I was saying, if you don't have access to all these cool things and you have like a tub, then just turn your water, and then also the shower, just turn it all the way to the lowest setting. I believe typically most households will be in that 50 to 60 range that we talked about. And so those are just some of the things. But if you're first trying it out and you're not like, I'm not going to do 3 to 5 minutes. If you're still not sold on it, just ease into it. It could be intervals. It could be where you just try the first minute. The first minute is going to be challenging, especially if you're doing outside like me with the temperatures the way they are. But maybe you do like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. So if you're doing it in a shower, just dip in, and you're seeing some more things. These are more advanced, but there's people with like saunas and cold plunges, and they're going back and forth between the two. I say wait if you've never done it before, but there is benefits to doing all that as well. And yeah, so that's a little bit on the cold plunge side of things. So let's talk. So we've talked nutrition. We've talked movement, and we'll probably come back to some of these. We've talked the cold plunge. So that's what I do in the morning. I've done it, after games of the night, but it's really more beneficial in the morning because it will wake you up at night. So just be wary of that. If you can, though, do it during a sunrise, man, because there's huge benefits to that as well. In fact, being in sunrise, this isn't really an uncomfortable thing. Being in sunrise is gorgeous, but being in a cold plunge in the sunrise could actually, the sunrise effect can actually help increase your melatonin early in the day so you can have more at night. And again, we all know the benefits of that. So the mat. So there's different kinds. I use this Shakti brand just because I believe they're the originators. This one's a little more out there, and I know a lot of people aren't doing this. The cold plunge is pretty popular. I'm sure if you pull up any social media, you're seeing a lot of people do it. A lot of trendy people do it. Again, I didn't do it for the trendy. In fact, I avoided it because of the trendy. I told you why I did it. If you have questions, again, reach out on that as well. But I will say it's exhilarating. I am so fired up, even after only 5 hours of sleep or a bad night's rest. Again, I'm human and normal too. like anybody else. It's been a game changer. If you take one thing today, well, first, eat real food, movement. But that cold plunge thing, just give it a go. Give it a try and just ease into it. Like I said, there's plenty of different ways. Just get started, try it. But give yourself a month before you say no to it and see if it's been a different maker. If you're dealing with a lot of depression, stress, or anxiety, I highly recommend it. If you deal with like a busy mind or been called bipolar ADHD, I highly recommend it as well. A lot of reasons, research to back that. So like I said, moving on, Shakti mat. So what this is, think of it like a bed of nails. They're like plastic, but I wish I brought one in. But Google it. Anyways, and they make pillows. I got the pillow too, and there's different grades. There's the original, there's like a medium, and there's like intense. I guess if you're crazy, which I am, I've got the intense pillow, the middle of the road mat. This was only, again, I looked up the research. It was one of those things where I was like, I don't know. But I found the benefits, and I could find deeper meditation on cold plunging, which was uncomfortable. And I'm one of those ones that believes in meditation and prayer and all those things. But I struggle to do it just sitting in a room and sitting in my vehicle, focusing on my breath, my mind. I've done a lot of work. It's a lot better, but it's still a struggle. It's so much easier when I'm in a pool, the cold pool, or when I'm laying on this mat. So I do this mat. This is me. Some people do it right before the bed. Some people do it in the morning for a wake-up call. I do it in the midday, pretty much every day, especially if it's been a very intense or stressful or busy, or I didn't get a whole lot of sleep the night before. 10 minutes on that thing, man, again, similar to the cold plunge, similar facts, similar reasons, similar positivities from it, where like I feel great. I can tell on the days where I'm more stressed, it's actually more painful. So I have more tension release. My body, our mind is our body is our mind. So if we're having a very stressful, intense day, our body's going to take that on. So a reason why people who might have a lot of injuries or have tight body, if you got a stressful life, but also why these things can help: meditation, breath work, and movement. So anyways, what it is, it's like this bed of nails essentially made out of plastic, but it's all these little needles sticking up. Go down slowly, by the way. If you're going fast, woo, I did that on accident once, but go down slow and you just lay on it. You could have a regular pillow. You don't need their pillow. And then they have a cool little app with the Shakti, but you can just, again, you could listen to something. You could pull up some kind of meditation, or you could just do some meditation sounds. That's helpful for me. But someone's not really talking a lot, but I just breathe through it. And again, similar to the cold plunge, after about a minute, it's easy. And then I would say, after, I don't even know, I don't set a timer, but within a few minutes, I'm passed out now. Like, it started out where it was like, okay, this kind of hurts, but it kind of feels good because I'm feeling the tension release. It's almost like an uncomfortable massage in a way, like the feeling of like you feel tight, tense muscles getting released. If you ever had acupuncture, similar idea, maybe that needle poke isn't so comfortable for some of you. Think of this as like 100 needles or so. Now, they're not poking through the skin, by the way. It's just into it. In fact, probably, 10, 15 minutes after it, you can still see like the little poke marks in my back, which is kind of weird. And I've posted on social media before. But anyway, so I'm passed out. I fall asleep on that thing. Call me crazy. But I wake up and I have a little aura ring, and it shows that I've taken a deep nap, like a deep sleep nap. I wasn't getting that from even just some like midday meditation. And I'm not trying to go for a nap, so I make sure I set a clock, but even 15 minutes, and I wake up refreshed, even if I don't fall asleep. But most times I do, even if I'm not feeling tired. But I always feel better. I feel less tense, less stress, more creativity. Oh my goodness. Like, my mind is just, meditation does that. But like I said, I use these tools, this uncomfortable stuff, because it makes things comfortable, like handling situations. But it's exciting to be able to get a lot more done in my mind, and then also actions. Like, I'm way more productive in the afternoon than ever before. since I started including that. So I do it around 1 or 2 o'clock. But I know people that use it right before they go to bed, and they're having the best night's sleep. And I would say on the afternoons that I use it, I have the best night's sleep. And this is something you only should do once a day. You can do it multiple times a day. There's no rhyme or reason. Some other things that it really does well is it improves blood circulation. So for those that don't feel like they have the best circulation or concerned about things like blood clots or whatever, it improves that. Definitely promotes a sense of well-being. Like I said, it relieves tension. It helps with energy. Like I said, if you're experiencing high levels of stress, I highly recommend it. And there's different ways of breathing on it. If you use the app, I mean, by the way, I'm not a promoter of any of these products. Like, I don't make money off any of this. I should have said that earlier, but like, I don't even think I'm selling stuff because you can go buy them. I get nothing out of it. I don't have a discount code at the end of this podcast or anything. I just do these things, and I'm providing this for you guys because I know what it's done to change my life. And you need tools, and you need times of breaks, and these are the last 2 ones are times of like mental breaks. We're like cooking and working out. You're using the mind just like anything else. But our minds are constantly being stimulated, especially with things like social media. We wake up, if we're always blaring the radio or listening to a podcast. Only this one counts, so you have to listen to this one. But like, if we're always being stimulated, we give our brains no rest. But we would never do that to our bodies, ever. We would never work out, every minute that we're awake, but we do this to our minds. So finding these little breaks and can be so this can be uncomfortable. And so taking time just to like relax the mind, calm the mind, especially if you're highly stressed, we're looking for the quick endorphin rush. And the endorphin rush could be social media. That's an easy go. It could be a cookie, or it could be porn. It could be a number of different things to make us get us that firework feeling. But I always ask, pause and breathe and be more mindful before you make these decisions. How do you feel about it? Whether it's cigarette smoking is another thing. This is something I work with clients specifically that are dealing with addictions is pause, breathe, and be mindful of the activity you're about to do. Why are you doing it? Is it going to help you? Is it going to hurt you? Is there any benefit of you doing it? What do you feel like before? What do you feel like during? And what do you feel like after? So let's take smoking. Okay, I'll give an example of somebody I know. He's quitting smoking. He's having success because we talked about this. And he actually said he never thought about doing that before. Now all he can think about is how stinky how it was, his breath, his clothes. Like, so he thinks about that and is like, I don't want to stink gross. Like, I wouldn't want somebody who smelled like me kissing me or being around me. And so he starts thinking about that, which grosses him out. But he's also somebody that plays hockey like I do. And he's noticing, like, he's a little bit younger than me. He's in his 30s, but he's already noticing, he was a good hockey player, but he's already noticing better breathing, better movement, his attitude. I mean, doing like squeezing our lips together to smoke a cigarette and things that they do to our mouths, they can actually affect our facial muscles and whether we frown or whether we smile, which affect our mood. And so it's just things to think about with being more mindful with these things. So that's what I'm saying, like why back to the Shakti mat and the cold plunges, I can have these opportunities to focus on one thing and be more mindful. And if you're still not fully understanding, let me tell you this. So have you ever had like an injury or something hurting, like your shoulder's chronically painful or your wrist, and then you go and stub your toe on the dishwasher or on the corner of the wall or something? Are you thinking about that hurt shoulder? No. Think about that stubbed toe. And so while that's a minor example, it's just showing like by doing something and being more mindful on this, it can take away from some of those other things. In fact, it can release some of those other things. So we've talked about nutrition. We've talked about movement. We talked about Shakti map. We've talked about We've talked about the cold plunging. One thing that also I wanted to include on this podcast is something I've been doing lately that's uncomfortable for me and was uncomfortable for a lot of people, or is uncomfortable for a lot of people, that I have found comfort through. And it's been a cool little experience. So I went through bouts of it's running. So basically, I'm running 1 mile a day. That at least 1 mile a day. Like the other day, I ran like 2.5 or something. So it's at least 1 mile a day. And I started this about the beginning of the year, around like January 13th, 14th. And I posted about it, and my producer was like, "You got to talk about this." And this goes along this same thing of comfort through discomfort. So after my back injury, or prior, let's go back. Prior to my back injury, I was running pretty avidly, pretty regularly. I have an older daughter. She's 13. She's an incredible runner. She plays lacrosse, but she's also great at cross country. She's an 8th grader, and she's actually the only 8th grader on JV indoor track. She did great. She went to sectionals recently. Like, she's doing incredible. And so she started running, and she wanted somebody to run with, so I started running with her. I used to love running. I started hating it, and then just found joy in it, running with her. But it's uncomfortable, let's be honest. Like, running, like, out of everything, for most people that I know, it sucks, especially that first mile. And that's why I got to the at least mile. If you can make it past first mile, it's usually like anything else. And this goes back to the first minute of the cold plunge, the first minute of the Shakti mat. So anyways, after that, my C4, C5, like anything after like 1.5 miles, 2 miles, my back and hips and it wasn't fun anymore. And it hadn't been comfortable since last summer. So I was do things here and there, and mentally, like a lot of things, man, this just sucks. And this is how people, I think, feel when it comes to any type of exercise or movement that don't do it regularly. So that's why I wanted to share this. So I had the idea of like, man, you know what? I may not be able to do these, 2-3 mile runs or 4 or 5 or whatever that I was doing. But what about 1 mile? So it's kind of like an experiment. I got no research data, but my personal experience on this one. I'm sure there is some, but I was like, I can do at least 1 mile a day. I mean, that could be anywhere from 6 minutes to 10 minutes or something, depending on what I'm feeling like. And so that's what I started doing. And I posted about it, one, to hold myself accountable and just tell people like how I'm feeling and the benefits of it. And I've had a few people jump on board because they were having some self-limiting beliefs around it as well. But like, I can at least do 1 mile. And if you've never really ran, and running just sounds hard, maybe are you walking 1 mile a day? If you're not even doing that, I would start there. But it's one of those things where it's like, I can at least do this. Like, can you at least do 5 push-ups? We'll start there and do that every day, like if you're not doing any movement. But back to this mile, I started it, and I'm getting more miles in a shorter period of time over the course of this 1 mile a day, because it's not always 1 mile. I would say most days it is, because I'm a very active guy who plays hockey, entrepreneur and things like that. So, but what I'm finding is that running that mile, like now it's almost the end of February, and I started about January 13th, 14th. It's so easy now. It's so comfortable. And it's kind of something it's something I look forward to. And my kids are holding me accountable. Hey, did you get your mile in today? It's got me to embrace the elements, and that's another fun challenge. So people have heard of like 75 hard, where you get 2 workouts a day and drink a gallon of water. I know a lot of people do that, but this is 365 days of hard or easy. I'm going to use the word, maybe it is hard. Maybe we'll just keep that word. But it's getting easier, and it's feeling more comfortable, and it's kind of fun. Sometimes I do it before my workout, and like when I've done it before, like even a game, those days go way better. I've done it after my workout because I was like, I don't want to run yet, like anybody else. But I always feel better afterwards. And I've had a host of benefits. Obviously, the health benefits. My cardiovascular system feels better. It's led to me applying it to other aspects of my life, whether it be business, personal. Hey, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I can't commit to, for example, we used to do 30-minute walks. Me and my kids would go on 30-minute walks or daily activities every day. But now that their lives have gotten so busy with sports and school and different extracurricular activities, and even mine and my wife's stuff, we're not able to do it all together. But I was like, maybe I can go with one kid and do one thing. Or maybe it's 10 minutes, or maybe it's taking some shots out back with my son or my daughter. So just these different things. And running can be uncomfortable. It might even hurt. Like I said, if you're not running, start with walking. But if you've already been able to walk miles, let alone miles, start with a light jog. Maybe it doesn't have to be a mile. Maybe it's a quarter mile. Maybe it's a half mile. But I would challenge you to at least do a half mile, because like it's not comfortable when you start. But here's the thing. I know a lot of runners, especially even me when I was running a lot, my hips tight, things like that. They feel great. Like all of it. I'm 42 and I was just loving the way my body feels during and after these runs. Maybe not always before, but once I just get moving, because I'm not putting pressure on time. There's no challenge of me to do my fastest mile, my fastest 5K. It's just get it in, and it's got to be a run. And it can't be a walk. That's how I'm holding myself accountable. It's also gotten to be easier, like I said, but that first mile is always the most uncomfortable, always the hardest, even in a race. If not always physically, but mentally, especially if you're competitive like me. So just embrace it. And then it's also about habits. You know, you're building a habit here. Habits are important. I've already said consistent about everything. If you can find a few things to be consistent about, especially movement. If you're not doing any kind of movement on a daily basis, not even a walk, do it. And I don't want to hear, this is tough, Justin. I don't want to hear I don't have time. It's the time that you make. It's the time that you create. And maybe it is getting up a little bit earlier. Like, how important is it? You need to sit down and decide why these things are. It's easy to not do anything. It's easy to hit the snooze. It's easy to sleep in. It's easy to watch TV. It's easy. But that easy is only going to make life harder. I promise you. I've seen it in my family. I've seen it with people that used to be my friends. And I will tell you, it will go into every aspect of your life. It will go into your business. It will go into your family. It will go into your mental and physical health, personally, professionally. So this is truly to the point of Strive 365, like to develop some habits, doing some uncomfortable things to find that long-term comfort and see how it moves into other aspects of your life. You will see that when you start eating more real food, how you start feeling better. Your body, for example, if you eat anti-inflammatory foods, which is things I recommend, you'll have less pain and inflammation on your body. You'll have better mental clarity. If you're eating, these foods that are digesting better, if you're adding probiotics to your life, you'll see that you're sleeping better. And if you're feeling better, then you're moving better. If you're thinking better, more positively, more clarity, then that's going to affect your personal relationships and your professional relationships in these productivities. So again, these are just some, but some of the uncomfortable things that we avoid, like life experiences, those tough conversations. Communication is key. We've all heard it. So we need to embrace the uncomfortable sometimes, like with these conversations. We need to face these challenges, these difficulties in life. We'll grow from these experiences and we'll find comfort in unexpected ways. For example, we can let things marinate up in our mind. The uncomfortability of a fight or a tension or whatever story we told ourselves in our heads about this relationship with these people. But if we take that moment to just reach out, ask some questions, have a conversation, maybe whatever we're angry about, stressed about, or letting us build up isn't really that bad. I've had this in my very own life where I've let things fester and marinate and I've made it worse in my mind. And then when I actually go and have the conversation with the person, I was like, oh my God, it wasn't that bad. Hey, raise your hand if that's ever happened to you. I can't see it, but I'm assuming there's several people that are, because if we just approach things, those tough conversations, the sooner the better. These things, by taking on these challenging projects or facing these difficult personal situations, like I said, they could be uncomfortable in the moment, but it can lead to a lot of personal growth and a deeper sense of fulfillment. Like, if you start choosing one day, even just to eat a healthy meal, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel like you just reward yourself. You're going to feel you accomplished something, and just keep adding to it. If you cook one meal and you're not cooking any, if you move one day, if you're not moving any, that's all it starts. And just add to it, build these habits, build this consistency, set a time, set a day, all these different things. Starting a new job can be uncomfortable, going to these interviews. But I will tell you everything that I mentioned already on this podcast. If you do some of these things, it'll make, starting these new jobs, going into these uncomfortable roles, experiencing these uncomfortable opportunities, it'll really, really, really help. It'll help give you more long-lasting endorphin rush, dopamine hits, more of the marathon type version instead of the firework that I talked about earlier, that we won't be searching out for the firework dopamine hits that we talked about. So engage in these things like sun exposure, like ice therapy, weights, running, breath work, that can boost our dopamine levels in a healthy and sustainable way to grow stronger, more physically, mentally, and emotionally, and all these ways that we can strive 365. So let's start a movement towards nourishing our bodies and minds and chasing the real dopamine and sprinting towards the future selves with purpose and intention. So, that's what I want to talk about on this podcast. Hopefully you got some nuggets. I would love to hear from those that are taking on some of these and what they're doing with them. I would also love to hear what some of you guys are doing. These are just a few. I do a few others, but I wanted to give some of these that I've seen the biggest and most impactful, especially right away, and longest lasting change. So start embracing these things, these uncomfortable things in your life, to see how they will change your life and those around you. Because as we know, our energy can become other people's energy, and other people's energy can go spread out like dominoes. So thank you for tuning in this episode of Strive 365. Really appreciate it. And if you thought somebody could find some value, if you found some value, please like, share, comment, and share with the world, because you never know how this episode might save or help a life. Take care.